Welcome to another edition of the Injury Prevention Podcast. We have a special guest today. With me is DORN's very own Mr. Alex Smith. Not only is he the proud father of twin boys, he is also our Director of Program and Service Development. Yay! Alex has a degree in kinesiology with a medical background in PT, ergonomics, injury prevention, and just generally being a very great person. Welcome, Mr. Alex. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Cheryl. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Well, this is exciting. We haven't actually done any podcasts with one of our own, so you get to be our first. So this will be good. So we're just going to dive right in. So at DORN, we've observed a remarkable 75% in ergonomic assessments, and then working and training over the past 2 years with all of our clients, which spans a bunch of different industries, whether it's Domino's, PPG, Starbucks, and others like that. In your opinion, what key factors are driving this surge in ergo demand?
I would say that it's mostly due to the fact that a lot of safety managers are becoming more educated and more aware. There's a lot of awareness around ergonomics, in recent years and that kind of thing. A lot of their education and certifications are starting to include more ergonomic material. And so as these safety professionals become more aware of that and they're able to witness the impact that ergonomics has on safety and injury prevention, they're starting to encompass it more and more and being proactive. For so long, we've seen a lot of reactive approaches. An injury happens, it's like, oh, we got to do something. And now they're trying to prevent that. They're taking a more proactive approach through ergonomic assessments, injury prevention programs, and stuff like that.
So they're really reaping the benefits and seeing why it's so beneficial to have it. So I agree with you on that one. What are the most typical issues that you're seeing with these assessments?
One of the biggest issues I see most of the time is turning ergonomic assessments into actionable processes.
Okay.
We see this a lot. So we spend all this time on site. We identify all of these issues. We come up with short-term and long-term solutions, and then it's sometimes we just see it kind of fizzle out a little bit. So, and I think that there's multiple factors at play. When I go to all these conferences and all that kind of stuff, I talk with, dozens and dozens of different safety professionals, directors, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of things I hear is that they're overwhelmed, they're overworked, they have a ton on their plate, maybe they're understaffed. And they get this beautiful report, with all of this really valuable information, but it can be overwhelming at the same time.
Sure.
Both the list of the issues that need to be resolved, but then all of the solutions, and sometimes younger individuals who are in management, maybe they have a little bit less experience and have a hard time knowing, where to start, because there's so much in front of them. A phrase that just sticks with me at one of the recent conferences earlier this year is this guy said, "I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose," and so it's just so accurate. And other safety professionals that I've shared that with, they're like, that is so true. So turning these ergo assessments into actionable processes is probably some of the biggest challenge that we face as ergonomists.
Okay. So in that vein, how can workers in management prepare for this assessment so they're actually getting the most benefit out of everything? I would imagine having people like us show up on site, do an assessment, and then boom, they get the gigantic, beautiful report that you're speaking about probably can be overwhelming and sticker shock almost of all these things they suddenly need to do. Is there a good rule of thumb for prep before we even get on site that makes this all go a little more smoothly?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. So what I'll usually advise people to do who are at least toying around with the idea of getting an assessment or even planning for one, usually what I'll recommend is know your goals ahead of time. So, what are you hoping to get out of this assessment? What is your desired outcome? Right? So what are your short-term and your long-term goals? What are you looking to accomplish this year? What are you looking to accomplish in the next 5 years? If you have a current injury prevention program, do kind of a self-analysis of it. What are its strengths that what are the weaknesses, or where are the gaps? What are the things that you're missing? um, excuse me. Also, your budget. Know how much money you have to work with, and over what time frame. So in the goals that you're trying to accomplish this year, what's the budget for the rest of the year?
Right.
If you have that available information long term, what is budget looking like? Even if it's a rough estimate for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So knowing how much money you have to work with, it helps you prioritize, with your ergonomic assessment report, which items you're going to tackle first and which ones are going to have the biggest impact.
So I know that you agree we have lots and lots of tools at everyone's disposal these days for assessments and injury prevention and just wellness programs in general. Whenever you go to a conference, you'll see on the exhibit floor, at least 70% of the vendors there are some sort of AI or new tech or whatever it happens to be. DORN is, of course, following suit. We've recently included our motion capture tech to our repertoire of ergo tools. So obviously, tech and AI are here to stay and is continually advancing. So what advice would you have for those who are apprehensive about the new shiny tech coming out?
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed going to all these conferences. It's very apparent when it's all right there in one big place. All kinds of new software, AI, exoskeletons, all kinds of new fancy tools. That things are evolving just really quickly. As you mentioned, we acquired recently this new AI technology that allows us to capture human movement and objectively measure the risk, and then also track changes in behaviors over time. When I was first introduced to it, I was a little apprehensive. I went to school for a while so that I could analyze, human movement and that kind of thing. So, my first reaction to it was, okay, well, all right, how accurate is this? What can this tell me that I can't already see myself? And
Right.
that kind of thing. But I was open minded to it, and I was like, all right, it's new and shiny. Let's play around with it and see what it can do. And the more I played around with it, and the more I used it in the field, the more uses I found for it.
Mm-hmm.
It works well for a visual aid, and when you're coaching people on the floor, it really can speed up your workflow. It does calculations for you very rapidly and accurately. It also, crosses, language barriers to an
Oh,
extent.
yeah.
Maybe if you and another individual aren't fluent in the same language, the visual tool really helps. So for those who are hesitant, I just say, just try it, and see what you think. Because there might be more uses for it once you start to use it. I know that there were for me. And does it solve every ergonomic problem? Absolutely not. Just like every other industry standard tool has its time and place, it's not meant for everything. So it's just another tool in your toolbox, and it works really well for some things, and your other tools in your toolbox will work well for other things. So
I would imagine not everyone has your obvious medical background and speaks in medical terminology. I mean, I know that I always can't. I would think that having the visual component is this is the person in real time. I would imagine that's a very helpful thing because you're not talking about the depth of a levator scapula stretch when you're doing, again, words that nobody understands. So I would imagine having the visual there is something that's equally as helpful.
yeah, it is. That's a really good point, because that's a challenge that we face oftentimes. Both in my PT background and in the world of ergonomics and injury prevention. We go through all this training, and we learn all this fancy jargon, and all this stuff, and we have to remember that oftentimes the people that we're working with maybe don't have the extent of the background that maybe an ergonomist does, or someone from the
Right.
medical background. And so using that visual tool is really helpful. Everybody can relate to red is bad, green is good, and it helps to be able to see a live video with an overlay that demonstrates the level of risk. It basically helps translate what we see with our trained eyes to somebody who maybe doesn't have the extent of that training.
Okay. So with that said, does DORN, or how do you choose the best ergonomic partner? So why is having an ergonomist with a background in, say, OSHA or physical therapy or OT, how is that beneficial when you're on site?
Yeah, so ergonomics is really, really diverse. People get into ergonomics from all sorts of backgrounds, whether it's medical, like PT, OT, maybe from a safety background, OSHA background, or an engineering background.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all extremely different and all bring a lot to the table, and all are equally as important. They all just bring a different perspective. But what I would say is most important is when you're looking to partner with somebody to help you with your ergonomic and safety issues, is look for somebody who is going to be your ongoing partner, right? Not
Right.
someone who's just going to give you a big list of all your problems and say, all right, good luck, have fun,
Mic
you
drop.
know, yeah, because that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier when, people get this big list of things and then they look at it, they maybe get halfway through, they get overwhelmed and they toss it in a drawer, never to be seen again, so when you're looking for somebody to partner with, look for somebody who's going to help you with implementation,
Right.
help you develop a roadmap, for the rest of the year or extend it to 5 years. How are we going to help tackle these problems one at a time, until we've reached all of our goals. The other thing to look at is someone who's going to help you develop the short-term goals and the long-term goals, but also address different avenues of solutions. So let's make sure to look at administrative controls that we can manage. Behavioral changes that we can manage. Are we looking at engineering things? Are we looking at new tools? Are we looking at new
Mm-hmm.
machinery? Are we looking to redo the entire facility? So someone who's looking at all different avenues in which these solutions can be tackled.
Excellent. Well, I want to wrap up with one more question, which is always a good one, exploring the future of ergonomics and what we're seeing coming down the pipeline for the next couple of years. Are there any trends that you're seeing that plan to shape the industry over, say, the next 5 years?
Yeah, one thing that I've been seeing a lot of is there's a lot of interest. It comes back to technology. Technology is advancing so fast, and so there's a lot of companies looking at different automation processes. So things that traditionally would involve a lot of, say, manual material handling or a lot of repetitive motions or fine motor movements, which ultimately lead to a lot of injuries. So a lot of companies are looking into different automation processes to basically, not take the worker out of it, but change the physical nature of the work to
Right.
reduce injuries that way.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, this is just a snapshot into one of DORN's very own. Again, this is Mr. Alex Smith. Feel free to join us on LinkedIn. You can always see some really great stuff with Alex on site with some of our clients, doing assessments, doing corrections, everything that DORN does. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.